तं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिराजनः. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They're praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. God bless you. We're on the chapter, The Master and His Injured Arm. And the date, it's Sunday, March 2nd, 1884. And it's page 395, middle of the page. Master. God alone is the master, and again, he is the servant. This attitude indicates perfect knowledge. Now, this is a very interesting statement, that I don't think he makes this statement in other places. I don't remember it exactly. But generally, this attitude of master to the servant involves difference. The servant won't say that you and I are one and the same. Thakur sometimes gives that other example, that if the master himself says, "Come, sit next to me," and he himself says, "You and I are one and the same," that's okay. If the servant does it, they'll think he's crazy. They'll cut his head off. So generally, this is one of the attitudes of bhava that involves a dualistic relationship, where we think of ourselves as separate but related to God. It's a relationship type of thing, but not where we feel that we're one with God. So what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that these attitudes are dualistic in appearance, but the ultimate truth that they lead to will also be that God has become all this, both the master and the servant. It's a very interesting statement. God alone is the master, and again, he is the servant. That means that also we who have that attitude as the servant, we have that oneness with the master, but we establish a relationship because we have some sense of I, some sense of individuality and personality, and that enables us to bridge the gap between the two of us. So the interesting statement. God alone is the master, and again, he is the servant. This attitude indicates perfect knowledge. At first, one discriminates, not this, neti, neti, and feels that God alone is real and all else is illusory. Afterwards, the same person finds that it is God himself who has become all this, the universe, Maya, and the living beings. First negation and then affirmation. So this idea that we have two categories, that which is permanent and that which is changing, that which is real, that which is unreal, that which is the seer and the seen. It's also a dualistic type of thinking, we can say, in order to help us go beyond that. But we start out with that. For Sri Ramakrishna, this idea that God alone is real and everything else is false is for the sake of spiritual practice, sadhana. And he doesn't say that this is a false idea, but it's not a final position for him. It's a stepping stone, we can say. So for the path of knowledge, we need to do that. We have to distinguish ourselves from everything that is separate from us, apparently. Right? So that means if at the very beginning, if I say, well, God alone has become all this, that God alone, we can have that attitude, but if I say that God alone has become this ego and this mind and body, and they're all one and the same, I can't distinguish between them, then I'll always remain falsely identified with this lower self. So in order to get rid of that, we have to be able to distinguish these two things. See, when we talk about everything being one with God, and we talk about the individual self being one with God, the slight distinction there, that everything that we see, even if we say that it's all divine, we say it's all a manifestation of God, it's still changing, and it's still impermanent, and it still causes bondage and leads to desires and everything else. We still have to be able to distinguish. We can't simply say everything is God, everyone is God, embrace everyone and enjoy everything. That we still, because the mind is not yet ripe, the mind is still clinging to its old ways and enjoyments and everything. So Sri Ramakrishna says that this position is necessary as a preliminary position, and preliminary means that there's all the way up until really we get to the highest position on the path of knowledge. This is not for the devotee, exactly on the path of knowledge. That we're told we have to make these distinctions between that which is seen and that which is the seer. Dirig drishya viveka. We have to distinguish between that which is constantly changing and that which is unchanging, that which is made of parts, that which is indivisible, all of the distinctions that we know. But ultimately, these will be, they use the term sublated in Western philosophy. These distinctions will somehow disappear in the highest stage. Then we come back down again, and then we see the distinction again. So Sri Ramakrishna says, then we see everything as manifestation or the glory, the Aishwarya of the Divine Mother, different ways of explaining it. But we shouldn't think that Sri Ramakrishna is somehow negating this idea of Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. He's accepting that, but as the position of the jnani, and which leads us to the highest realization. But when we come back down again, then there's a different stage called vijnana, where we see everything through the eyes of oneness. So he talks about this as first negation and then affirmation. Sometimes he'll use the terminology anuloma viloma. That anuloma means you go with the grain, with the way the hairs are, and then you can reverse the process. You go up the steps, then you come back down the steps. When we start on going up the steps, we see duality. When we come back, we also see the duality, but with the different eyes. Then it's different for us. We see everything as divine. This is what Sri Ramakrishna says, is that state of vijnana. The jnani, coming back down again, may still see everything as kind of dreamlike, but will not feel that same need to be afraid of the world. Everything will be something that just can be an object of enjoyment somehow, as an observer, So this is a very important teaching that Sri Ramakrishna has, that he tells us over and over again, that he's utilizing a very important idea of Advaita Vedanta, that there's a distinction to be made between the seer and the seen. If we don't make that distinction, then the mind will always be mixed up with the world. But that distinction is overcome later when we see that what we called asat, unreal, also has its own reality because it comes directly from Brahman somehow. And this is the way he explains it. This is the view held by the Puranas. Now, this means that the devotees like this position. We know he has his code words. When he says the Puranas, it means this dualistic position and devotional position. When he says according to Vedanta, it means according to the Jnanis and according to Advaita Vedanta. So for Sri Ramakrishna, he himself didn't have any one position that he would argue for the way the philosophers argue for one position. This idea of vada, where we try to establish a philosophical position, and we can do it also by defeating all of the opposing positions. That wasn't in Sri Ramakrishna's worldview. He accepted all these different philosophical positions as spiritual paths. So when he says Jotama Totopat, he doesn't simply mean as many faiths. He means as many possible spiritual paths. All of these schools of Advaita, they're also mata, different schools. Then he'll give this example, the bell fruit. So this is the view held by the Puranas. Available fruit, for instance, includes flesh, seeds, and shell. You get the flesh by discarding the shell and seeds. But if you want to know the weight of the fruit, you cannot find it if you discard the shell and seeds. Just so, one should attain Satchidananda, in Brahman, God, by negating the universe and its living beings. But after the attainment of Satchidananda, one finds that Satchidananda itself has become the universe and the living beings. It is of one substance that the flesh and the shell and seeds are made, just like butter and buttermilk. Now, there are people, it looks like the position of Ramanuja, the Vishishtadvaita Vada, this qualified non-dualism. They'll use this type of illustration that Brahman is qualified by two things. One, this Jagat, and the other is Jiva. So the outside hard shell of the bell fruit will be like the universe, and the seeds will be like the Jivas, and the flesh itself will be Brahman. So they're all one package. But seeds are actually individual seeds, real individual seeds, and the outside is a real shell. So this is the position of Ramanuja. For Sri Ramakrishna, we will see that his understanding of the jiva, again, has to do with what the attitude that we're taking with the people who was talking to. He'll give all different types of interpretations that the philosopher will say, no, you have to choose one or the other. They'll say, no, it can be. Either there's only jivas, if they're real and they're many, you have to accept that. If what we call the jiva is just the sun being reflected in the pots, if that's the sun, then there's no reality to the jiva, individual jiva. What happens at liberation? What happens when the water dries up in the pot? Does that reflected sun, does they go and live with the real sun? It never had any existence of its own. It was just a reflection. So that'll be, Advaita Vedanta will accept that type of idea. We take the waves on the ocean. Then individual wave is no reality other than the ocean. There's no real separation, but apparent separation for a particular point of time. They're all different positions. Most of the arguments among the philosophers have to do with what is the nature of the self. External world, of course, is also there, but the real thing is what is the nature of the self. And one of the actual main points of difference is what happens in the state of liberation. The devotee doesn't want to think in that state of liberation. There's no enjoyment of God. Now, what happens if we take that one drop of water and it goes back into the ocean? Does it have any separate individuality at that point? The Advaita Vedanta will say no. There's not, and if we become one with Brahman is nothing to be experienced there. It's some type of experience, but there's no experiencer to experience the experience. In that case, we have a very hard time distinguishing between the nirvana of the Buddhist, where just the light goes out, and this Brahmagyani of the Advaitin. Very hard to distinguish. They're very very, very similar that way. So the devotional schools, they don't like this idea of merging into God at the end. They have all different types of mukti, this sadharmya, samipya, all different things where we live in the presence of God. We take the same qualities of God, that we enjoy the bliss of God. All of these different types of things are there. But this sayukya, this becoming one, sayujya mukti, they say, becoming one, that's the last one. They don't like that one so much. They want these different distinctions. So what does Sri Ramakrishna say about this ego and this individuality? Sometimes he'll say it's like a stick on water giving the appearance of separation. Sometimes he'll talk about, this distinction, that this will, like the ice, when it melts, then it's gone. There's no distinction at all. If we say, no, this is his position, Ramakrishna says that just as the seeds are real, and there are many of them, there are many different jivas. So there'll be people who argue that Ramakrishna was really a follower of Ramanuja, that he liked this Shista Dvaita. I think it misses the point that he thought that this is a very nice way for devotee to look upon this relationship between the universe, God, and oneself. Very helpful and very nice. Forget about which is the ultimate truth. For him, there is no ultimate truth other than experience. What is the truth of Brahman? Brahman is what Brahman is. Whatever we say about it is a limitation and short of, we can never explain it in words. We have to experience it. So this is why it's very nice when he says it this way, that this is the view held by the Puranas. He's not saying that this is the final truth. You have to accept this, anything like that. Other times he'll say, let me tell you what the Jnanis say, and he'll give other types of illustrations. So you look at the difference between weighing the bell fruit and peeling the onion. It's not that we have 100 onions, we peel each one, and each one has a little seed inside, which is the jiva. There's only pure space, and there's only one space. Two different illustrations representing two different philosophical points of view, but for Sri Ramakrishna, two different ways of trying to get a handle on this relationship between ourselves and God and the universe. That's all. So just so one should attain Satchidananda by negating the universe and its living beings. That's at first. But after the attainment of Satchidananda, one finds that Satchidananda itself has become the universe and the living beings. It is of one substance that the flesh and the shell and seeds are made, just like butter and buttermilk. Now, this, whether it's a philosophical position or not, this is the experience that Sri Ramakrishna had coming back down in his particular type of state of vijnana. This is how he saw the universe, that everything was one. It's Brahman manifesting, Divine Mother manifesting as the universe and dwelling within all beings as the jivas. He saw that type of oneness. So the bell fruit, there's also oneness, but internal distinction. The Advaitins say no internal distinction at all. They just that oneness. It may be asked, how has Satchidananda become so hard? This earth does indeed feel very hard to the touch. The answer is that blood and semen are thin liquids, and yet out of them comes such a big creature as man. Everything is possible for God. First of all, reach the indivisible Satchidananda, and then, coming down, look at the universe. You will then find that everything is its manifestation. Now, using the term id, because this Satchidananda is this impersonal. Other times we can say is everything is a manifestation of Divine Mother. Philosophically, no difference. This is all uh, in terms of our sentiment, how we like to look at things. If we prefer to look at this absolute reality in terms of Divine Mother, then we'll say it's all her manifestation. Then sometimes Sri Ramakrishna will say, oh, within everyone is this, all women is Sita, within all men Rama. That doesn't mean that there are two absolutes manifesting in two different ways. Just a different way of looking at it. It is God alone who has become everything. The world by no means exists apart from him. Now, there are schools of Advaita Vedanta who will really try to give very little philosophical substance to the world. Will we say that the snake and the rope, that the snake comes from the rope, that it can't exist apart from the rope? No, because there's no snake. They won't even bother with any of that. So just different ways of looking at it. All elements finally merge in the Akasha. Now, we're going to get one of the few times that Sri Ramakrishna really gives us some Sankhya philosophy. It's very interesting. Again, at the time of creation, Akasha evolves into Mahat. Now, generally, this word Akasha will be, we're talking about now Prakriti, with nature and everything. Akasha here really means that primordial matter, we can say. So I'm just talking about prana and akasha, matter and energy. So it's more or less the same thing. In this way, the whole world system, at the time of creation, akasha evolves into mahat. So not akasha as the element, because that comes later, into mahat, and mahat into ahankara. In this way, the whole world system is evolved. So he went from really this qualified non-dualism to Sankhya, to explain all of this. It is the process of involution and evolution. Now, what this means is that when this universe goes into that state of dissolution, into potential form, everything that was in it gets involved in seed form, just as the whole banyan tree is involved in the little seed of the banyan tree, so that can turn into a big tree again. It is the process of involution and evolution. A devotee of God accepts everything. He accepts the universe and its created beings, as well as the indivisible Satchidananda. So we can do this. We can say, yes, everything is divine. At the same time, we have to know that this external universe is not going to satisfy us. Even then, there's something that is hollow about it. This is why Sri Ramakrishna always says anitya and avastu, that it's something that's transitory, it's something changing, it's something that doesn't have any real substance to it, as a world of enjoyment. If we see it in manifestation of God, that's a different thing. But we shouldn't think that, okay, now we have a free license to do whatever we want, embrace everyone equally, no, we still have to use our discrimination. God dwells within all beings. We keep a distance from some people. We don't embrace the tiger, Tucker says. Now, so this is really what he's talking about now. It's the path of devotion, utilizing knowledge. So the other schools of Vedanta, they're devotional schools, but they utilize this type of reasoning. Now he says, well, the yogi's path is different. In yoga, it's not as important to focus on all of these different philosophical concepts as it is to clear the mind, to make the mind perfectly still and quiet, and have that merging into that higher type of reality. So he's going to make a distinction here. But the yogi's path is different. He does not come back after reaching the Paramatman, the Supreme Soul. He becomes united with it. Now, this was the one question when I first reading the Gospel. I went around asking everybody, all the big Swamis, I always was very curious about this idea that if one attains nirvikalpa samadhi, then one gives up the body in 21 days. How exactly does that work? That what about prarabdha karma? And uh, is this for everybody? Can one realize God without nirvikalpa samadhi? Their lower types, can one come back down if one is all these different types of questions? Huh? And many people, I think, this is an issue. Do we really want to strive for something that means that we'll go into the state of samadhi and we'll never come back down again, and the body will fall off in 21 days? Huh? But if we follow this, then we know that those who will realize God through this path of yoga, Raja Yoga, will be a very, very tiny, tiny percentage of those spiritual aspirants. That most of us are following a devotional path, and Thakur always talks about God realization. So we have to have some faith that God realization doesn't mean we're going to give up the body in 21 days. That now he's saying, and he doesn't make this distinction all of the time. Huh? That it's just for the yogi. Huh? Usually he'll just say one in that state of nirvikalpa samadhi that one can bring the mind back down again. At other times, he says that for ordinary person, and is not an ordinary person, a very highly evolved spiritual seeker, that who attains that state of nirvikalpa samadhi, they can't maintain it because they'll have a little karma left. They'll have some little desire, and that'll pull the mind back down again. So this really means that the yogi who is finished with all of his karma, all of the desires are gone, can attain that state where whether the body is there or not doesn't make any difference. And then the body will fall. It means this is the way they leave this world, through this type of nirvikalpa samadhi. And the rare souls are the ones who can really fully get merged in nirvikalpa samadhi and come back again. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says is the restricted to the avatars, Ishvara Kotis, or Nitya, these very special souls. And even then, it's not that they have the power to do it, because the I is gone at that time. That from Thakur's point of view, the will of the Divine Mother that brings it back down, or maybe they also keep a little desire to serve the world, to help others, something like that, so the mind can come back down again. But there's no active will that can bring the mind back down from nirvikalpa samadhi, because there's no I at that point. It's gone. So this is, but the yogi's path is different. Then he says, the partial knower limits God to one object only. He thinks that God cannot exist in anything beyond that. Then there are three classes of devotees. The lowest one says, God is up there. So this probably Sri Ramakrishna was familiar with the Christian attitude that people praying and looking up, and this idea of heaven and everything like that. God is up there. That is, he points to heaven. The mediocre devotee says that God dwells in the heart as the inner controller. Okay, now we won't say mediocre. This is also a very high state, but this is not quite reaching the level of the Vijnani, which we'll get to after that. But the highest devotee says God alone has become everything. Now we can have both. We can say God alone has become everything, and also God dwells within the heart as the Antaryaman. We can maintain both views. There's no problem with that. But this means that any hint of duality is gone. There's only oneness. One sees the divinity everywhere. This can't be explained. I think this has to be experienced. How Sri Ramakrishna saw everything is Chinmaya. Everything is an embodiment of pure consciousness. We're told over and over again, consciousness is the subject, never the object. So this Chinmaya state, or that vision, is something unusual that really has to be seen when the mind ascends to a very high mystical state. It is not something that can easily be understood. How does consciousness manifest itself as all this, something like this? Can we really say that, yes, I see this as Chinmaya? If we want to say that this is a whole thing is a dream, then we have some understanding like that. But Thakur also didn't restrict it to that idea, to look upon everything as a dream. But this was his experience. So we accept it. We accept that as a something that can be experienced in the highest state. Even Narendra didn't accept that for a long time. He'll mention that. All that we perceive as so many forms of God. Narendra used to make fun of me and say, yes, God has become all. Then a pot is God, a cup is God. Laughter. He and Hazra would sit outside and make fun of Sri Ramakrishna. You know that whole story from Ashtavakra Samhita. Thakur wanted Swamiji to read that to him, and it had all of these ideas in it. Then Thakur casually said, oh, what are you talking about? And simply touched him, and everything changed. And for several days, he was in a different state of mind completely. He didn't know what's real, what's not real. He would bang his head against the railing. He didn't know how much to eat, not to eat, nothing like that. And then he said afterwards, mind came down. He said, then I feel I had some glimpse of that state that the rishis had attained when they made these statements. A very nice experience. Thakur could give that experience, not just that he had it. He could give it to those who could handle it, and not to anybody and everybody. All doubts disappear when one sees God. This is, of course. Now we're trying to develop some conviction about these things through reasoning, through logic, through faith. But these final doubts will go when we have that experience. Then all doubts are removed, all the knots are untied. Karma is all burnt. It is one thing to hear of God, but quite a different thing to see him. A man cannot have 100% conviction through mere hearing. But if he beholds God face to face, then he is wholly convinced. Formal worship drops away after the vision of God. Actually, even before the vision, as Ramakrishna says, that all the formalities, they start become less and less and less and less until we have that final experience. But in his case, he continued as priest of the Kali temple somehow in doing things in a very unorthodox type of way until he had that realization. And after that vision of Kali, then he couldn't perform the worship after that. I think he got, did he get Ramlal to do it after that, the Kali temple? And he had something like that. I used to worship the deity in the Kali temple. It was suddenly revealed to me that everything is pure spirit. The utensils of worship, the altar, this is Chinmaya, the altar, the door frame, all pure spirit. Men, animals, and other living things, all pure spirit. Then, like a madman, I began to shower flowers in all directions. Whatever I saw, I worshipped. So we know about that ultimate experience that Sri Ramakrishna had when he was ready to cut his throat, all of that. But even before that, he would have these different types of visions and experiences. There's so many different things. How he saw the Divine Mother and the cat who came to eat the offerings and everything. And so it wasn't just that. On the way to that really all-encompassing experience of Divine Mother, he had so many other little types of experiences. One day, while worshiping Shiva, I was about to offer a bell leaf on the head of the image when it was revealed to me that this Virat, this universe itself, is Shiva. After that, my worship of Shiva through the image came to an end. Another day, I had been plucking flowers when it was revealed to me that the flowering plants were so many bouquets. Now, we shouldn't stop plucking flowers for offering. This is Ramakrishna. We don't have to go that far. But I thought, because Shivaratri is coming up, thought I would tell the very interesting experience that I had. It's not a spiritual experience. It was just a little light bulb that went off. This was in 1979, and I went on pilgrimage to Kedarnath. And one of the places where you stop is Urudraprayag. And there's a series of like 7 steps. You go way down to get to the Ganga, and you're supposed to take a bath there, a very auspicious thing. And then the next day you continue your journey to Kedarnath. So I was traveling with, I was not yet a monk. I was traveling with two of the monks of the order at that time. And there was load shedding, so it was very dark. We could hardly make our way down, the steps and everything, but we got down there. And looking straight out, there was one very high peak and snow-covered, and the crescent moon it just happened to be the time of the month of the crescent moon, and it was just at the crest of the mountain. Exactly like yes, there. And you see the white snow, and you see the Ganges, you see flowing down and everything. And then it struck me that this is Shiva. This is how that image of Shiva comes. That the ashes on his body or the snow of the Himalayas, that he is the mountain somehow. It was really. It wasn't a spiritual experience. Don't get me wrong. I didn't go into samadhi or anything like that, but I found it so interesting that this is what the rishis must have seen, and how they identify Shiva with the Himalayas itself, and this Virat, this idea. So it was really a very wonderful thing. Just that time of month when the moon was just in the crescent and just touching. Just the right time of day, also or night, you could say. It was like 8:00 at night when it came. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we all bathed in the Ganga, and that next morning, we woke up with practically pneumonia. It was so freezing cold, and that night we slept in one room. It must have been 20 other people there, and full of bed bugs. So we hardly slept the whole night. And then the next day, to the long walk, we had heavy backpacks and everything. But it was a fantastic experience. Yeah, really. After that, looking at this Kedarnath mountain, when you don't see it the whole time you're going, and then you walk around one little pass and everything, you look and you see it straight up like that. It's really fantastic. Taralokya, the songwriter for the Brahmo Samaj, he was there at that time. How beautiful is God's creation, Master. Oh no, it is not that. It was revealed to me in a flash. I didn't calculate about it. It was shown to me that each plant was a bouquet adorning the universal form of God. This idea of Virat, that this whole universe is God, is the body of God, if we want to look at it that way. God dwelling within this universe, this idea of this Purusha with the sun and the moon are his two eyes, is a very poetic type of idea. But to see all of this, if we see that, then the flowers are already resting on the Lord, we can say. No need to pick it and put it anywhere else. That was the end of my plucking flowers. I look on man in just the same way. When I see a man, I see that it is God himself who walks on earth. This is microcosm, macrocosm. The whole universe is the body of God, and each individual body is also the vehicle in which God dwells. When I see a man, I see that it is God himself who walks on earth, as it were, rocking to and fro like a pillow floating on the waves. The pillow moves with the waves. It bobs up and down. The body has indeed only a momentary existence. God alone is real. Now, this is that other way of looking at it. Now, we just saw everything is real, but God alone is real in a different way. The permanent absolute reality, that is our real nature. Everything else is transitory, changing, uh, nothing that we can really get a hold of, distant, just an object of experience. We don't know it as anything more than an object of experience. We don't know what it really is in itself, anything like that, just as it appears to us. Now the body exists, and now it does not. Years ago, when I'd been suffering terribly from indigestion, Fridoy said to me, "Do ask the mother to cure you." I felt ashamed to speak to her about my illness. I said to her, "Mother, I saw a skeleton in the Asiatic Society Museum. It was pieced together with wires into a human form. Oh, Mother, please keep my body together a little like that, so that I may sing thy name and glories." Interesting that they took him to the Asiatic Society. It's like we see with uh, dinosaurs and things like that. They'll have the bones and they'll try to put it together with wire and everything. Why this desire to live? Now, this is another interesting question. Those who know God alone is real, that's their real nature. When the body falls, they'll be united with God. Then what's the point of remaining uh, with all of the suffering of the body and all of the inconveniences of life? Why do we have such a strong desire? So he says, why this desire to live? After Ravana's death, Rama and Lakshmana entered his capital and saw Nikosha, his old mother, running away. Lakshmana was surprised at this and said to Rama, "All her children are dead, but still life attracts her so much." Rama called Nikosha to his side and said, "Don't be afraid." "Why are you running away?" She replied, "Rama, it was not fear that made me flee from you. I've been able to see all these wondrous actions of yours simply because I am alive. I shall see many more things like these if I continue to live. Hence, I desire to live." Now, for us, the desire to live is attachment. It is attachment. It's no conviction that there's anything better than this life. We don't know anything else. Uh, is because of Maya, basically. This is a different thing. This is for the God realized soul. Then they get to enjoy this divine play somehow. We had one Swami. He was the founder of the Chicago Center, Swami Ganeshwaranda. And I remember there was a small biography that was written. It was never published for uh, regular consumption. It was just somehow among his close devotees. I managed to get a copy. So somebody gave it to me. And I remember he made a great statement. He said, "I don't know why everyone is always saying, 'Let me get out of life, let me get out of it, may I not be born again,' and everything." He said, to see everything as this play of God, to be able to serve Thakur, his lifetime, is a great joy. Why should we not want to do that life after life? It's unusual. This is not the standard way of looking at things, but I appreciated it very much. What a great state to be in, where one really gets great joy out of being able to serve, to live life as service, and following a very high ideal. Swamiji, how much Swamiji suffered in life, and how you could say, "May I be born again and again," and suffer, so many miseries, and just to help a single person to worship God dwelling in all beings.
He was also happy when his play was done.
And he was also happy when his play was done. Yeah, because he had a sense of mission also. Swamiji is a little bit different from other people. It's not just my play is done, but my work is what I was born to do has been done. I've accomplished that. He wrote so many times, I feel that I've set the machine in motion, the machinery in motion. He used that language when he had set up the Ramakrishna order, and that Thakur's work would continue, that he wasn't necessary, and he wanted to just give up everything. Really, his play was done. It's a very beautiful attitude that he had. He didn't want to be ever be president of the order, take any active part. That way, he really wanted to just really live on his own, or live with his mother. At the very end, he had some desire like that also. So, yeah, he was willing to be born again and again, but then he was so happy to get that final respite, because he felt he'll go back to Sri Ramakrishna. They had that faith also.
Did Ramakrishna refer to Vivekananda as he's one of those Saptarishis or something like that?
Yeah, this was uh, the vision that Sri Ramakrishna had, but I don't take this so literally. Also, he says he's the sage Nara. Even that I don't take so literally. For me, there's another means the embodiment of humanity, Nara Narayana. There's God dwelling in the transcendent form, and God dwelling as man. And that Swamiji represented that, his highest form of God dwelling as man. That's my own way of looking at it. Otherwise, Nara is not one of the seven rishis. It's hard to square all of the different visions that Sri Ramakrishna had. He also saw Swamiji as Shiva. Now, these are all different, uh, yes, different ways of showing the greatness of Swamiji. There'll be others who will take it very literally, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think Swamiji was greater than any of the seven rishis. I don't want to restrict him to that even. But yes, yeah, we have this idea, of course, that Swamiji was. What is it? Saptarshi Mandala. Uh, Mangalagatam, that he had come from yeah, Saptarshi, the seven rishis. This is also a constellation. This is the Big Dipper. huh? That some idea. Then Thakur had that idea that he traveled well far out into some outer realm, and they were all there and everything. So this is in that mood of God realization. Things get mixed up. All these Puranic ideas and other things, they'll come into the mind. And whatever spiritual attitude one has, they'll come in the mind. And these high realizations will be colored by cultural things and all sorts of things like that. I don't think that we have to get into big arguments. Is it literally true? Which of the seven rishis was he? Some people will even go through that. Brigu.
No, because there's different sets of seven.
And that's also true, that there's not just one list of seven of the Saptarshi. There are some that are in common, and then there's some that are different. Yeah. So anyhow, we don't have to bother about these things too much. We just know that he was a great soul who came with a very great responsibility and burden and mission, that he had to come with Sri Ramakrishna in order to carry his message throughout the world. That was his mission, and once he had done it, he knew that he had finished what he had to do, and the whole vision of things changed also. And then Mother revealed herself, and my child, that you do it, you don't do anything. I've been doing it all along. Everything changed after that. He also had his different stages. Then after that, everything mother, mother, mother. All my patriotism is gone. A very beautiful statement that he made. Yeah. Now it's only mother. But before, no more Hari Om. Now only Ma, Ma, Ma. Very nice. That was a Kirbhavani when he had that experience. Without desires, the body cannot live. That means we don't live. That if we have no desires at all, what's keeping the mind in this ordinary form? It'll go right up. Without desires, the body cannot live. Smiling. I had one or two desires. I prayed to the mother. O mother, give me the company of those who have renounced lust and gold. I said further, I should like to enjoy the society of the jnanis and bhaktas. He Sometimes we think that these jnanis, they were all dry and everything. He didn't care for them. That's some extreme type. Otherwise, he loved everybody. So I should like to enjoy the society of the jnanis and bhaktas. So give me a little strength that I may walk hither and thither and visit those people. But she did not give me the strength to walk. Yeah, he would have to go by palanquin often when he went to these pilgrimage places and things. Tarailokya, smiling. Have all the desires been fulfilled? Master smiling. No, there are still a few left, all left. The body is really impermanent. When my arm was broken, I said to the mother, Mother, it hurts me very much. At once, she revealed to me a carriage and its driver. Here and there, a few screws were loose. The carriage moved as the driver directed it. It had no power of its own. Yeah, many of these God-realized souls and direct disciples, they had a completely different relationship with the body. I remember Swami Vivekananda. He was what, sixth president of the order. Anyhow, he was Swamiji's disciple, Holy Mother's disciple. Holy Mother gave his mantra diksha. So he used to say, "Oh, Thakur, why do you keep beating this broken drum?" His body was breaking down. His health was very bad, but Thakur wanted to keep using it. He was president of the order. He had to keep giving initiation and everything. So as if it's just his own something separate from him. There's like we have a little drum instrument or something.
Maybe he was quoting what Thakur himself told Mother during his last illness. Thakur himself told Mother, how long will you keep beating this broken drum?
It may be a Bengali expression also. Something, I don't know. Yeah. It wasn't just the direct disciples, even those who came afterwards. There were some really just powerhouses. He was one of them. That's Swami Vivekananda. Why then do I take care of the body? It is to enjoy God, to sing his name and glories, and to go about visiting his jnanis and bhaktas. Now he's not telling us one thing, that is for the sake of mankind. That he also had this sense of mission. He didn't like to think of it that way. He never liked to think of himself as a guru or a spiritual teacher or anything like that. But he knew that he came to earth for a reason. That it wasn't just for his own enjoyment. That not just he didn't come just to eat rasagolas. Narendra was sitting on the floor in front of the master. Yeah, so when he was teasing about Narendra making fun of me and everything, Narendra was there. He was doing it to tease him. Master, to Trailokya and the other devotees. The joys and sorrows of the body are inevitable. Look at Narendra. His father is dead. So this is just shortly after his father's passing away. This is, let's see, 84, right? March 84. His father passed away sometime, maybe within a few months earlier, something like that. His father is dead and his people have been put to extreme suffering. He can't find any way out of it. God places one sometimes in happiness and sometimes in misery. Now, are we getting any explanation? Is it one's karma? Is it for some special hidden purpose or anything? Sometimes Thakur doesn't give us any explanation. Trailokya, revered sir, God will be gracious to Narendra, master with a smile, but when? It is true that no one starves at the temple of Annapurna in Benares, but some must wait for food till evening. This is the example that Thakur gave, that everyone will get God realization. Some earlier, some later. Depends what place in line we have and how anxious we are for it. So, yeah, here he's annoyed with the Divine Mother for allowing his Narendra to have to suffer so much. Once Hriday asked Shambhu Malik for some money. Hriday was living at the temple. He got a certain monthly fee and everything. It wasn't like he was a beggar on the street. I don't know why he's asking for money. Maybe to send back home or something. Shambhu Malik was a wealthy man. Anyhow, once Hridaya asked Shambhu Malik for some money. Shambhu held the view of Englishmen on such matters. That means Western educated people from the British. Thakur knew that word, Englishman. He actually used it. He said to Hridaya, "Why should I give you money? You can earn your livelihood by working. Even now you are earning something. The case of a very poor person is different. The purpose of charity is fulfilled if one gives money to the blind or the lame." Thereupon, Hridaya said, "Sir, please don't say that. I don't need your money. May God help me not to become blind or deaf or extremely poor. I don't want you to give, and I don't want to receive." The master spoke as if piqued because God had not yet shown his kindness to Narendra. Now and then he cast an affectionate glance at his beloved disciple. Yeah, he was really concerned. The Thakur, he used to tell the devotees when they would come, he would say, "You see, look at the condition that he's in and everything. Can you not do something to help him? Either help him find a job or do something for him." And Narendra would get very upset. He would say, how can you talk about these things in front of anybody and everybody like that? So one day he said to him, "Don't you know, for your sake, I could beg from door to door." Huh? How he loved Narendra. Narendra, I'm now studying the views of the atheists. Yeah, it's interesting that Swamiji's mother was such a great devotee, and Swamiji had so much reverence for his mother. We practically, you can say, worshipped his mother, and it was because of his being raised by his mother that he had this spiritual, religious, upbringing that he had and everything. And after all of this happened, and one day she heard him praying, doing his prayers and everything. And I don't know why, for some reason, she said, "All your life you've been praying to God. Who is there listening and doing anything for us?" There was just one time that she must have been so, sad and everything, and depressed. And but anyhow, so the word got out that Swamiji was an atheist. It simply means that all of them actually. Later we see in Kashipur, many of them, they were studying the views of the Buddhists, which were kind of non-theistic, something like that. And Sri Ramakrishna said, that's fine. People go through different stages like that. There's nothing wrong with it. But all these rumors started spreading that Swamiji doesn't believe in anything anymore. And Thakur said, don't say these things in front of me. I'll never believe them about my Naren. So he said, I'm now studying the views of the atheists. Master, there are two doctrines, the existence and the non-existence of God. Why don't you accept the first? Very simple, huh? Just like a child would say. Surendra, God is just. He must look after his devotees. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Yeah, we can say that, but look what's happening. Huh? Doesn't appear that way all the time. We don't know. There's karma behind it, some hidden purpose, but anyhow, doesn't appear that way all the time. Master, it is said in the scriptures that only those who have been charitable in their former births get money in this life. Now we're saying it to Surendra. Surendra was one of those, there were several of them like him, that were very miserly and charitable, that they didn't like to give money away very easily, but they gave it away. He gave a lot of money, but with a little bit of Abhiman about this money. A little, not proud exactly, but he said to Sri Ramakrishna once, some people can give money easily, some people it's hard for them, people don't understand, they don't understand my attitude and everything. But he was so helpful for the Bharanagamad and other things, and very generous person. It is said in the scriptures that only those who have been charitable in their former births get money in this life. But to tell you the truth, this world is God's Maya. And there are many confusing things in this realm of Maya. One cannot comprehend them. We have such a desire to explain everything. either karma or God's will with a hidden purpose, that everything has some purpose behind it. Maybe, maybe not. This Maya, we don't know. So we make the best of it. We try to make sense out of things, but they're very interesting. There are many confusing things in this realm of Maya. One cannot comprehend them. The ways of God are inscrutable indeed. Bhishma lay on his bed of arrows. The Pandava brothers visited him in Krishna's company. Presently, Bhishma burst into tears. The Pandavas said to Krishna, Krishna, how amazing this is. Our grandsire, Bhishma, is one of the 8 Vasus. Another man as wise as him is not to be found. Yet, even he is bewildered by Maya and weeps at death. But, said Krishna, Bhishma isn't weeping on that account. You may ask about it. See, bewildered by Maya doesn't mean it is glory of God. It means that some attachment has come. They're thinking that way. Bhishma isn't weeping on that account. You may ask him about it. When he asked Bhishma said, "Oh Krishna, I am unable to understand anything of the ways of God. God himself is the constant companion of the Pandavas, and still they have no end of trouble. That is why I weep. When I reflect on this, I realize that one cannot understand anything of God's ways. God has revealed to me that only the Paramatman, whom the Vedas describe as the pure soul, is as immutable as Mount Sumeru, unattached and beyond pain and pleasure. There is much confusion in this world of his Maya. One can by no means say that this will come after that, or this will produce that." Okay, let us stop here. We have a little more on this day, but we can do this next time. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukham Bhathudavikraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamedhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, and who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. We wish everyone a very happy Shivratri, that will have a short puja. Normally it goes through the whole night, 4 different worships. We compress everything into one. It'll start around 7:30, and everyone will have a chance to pour milk on the Shiva Lingam at the end and then have prasad. So everyone is welcome to come. Kumar and I, unfortunately, will have to be out of town, but the others will be here. Swami Brahmarupanandi and Swami Bhaswaranandji, they'll do the puja tomorrow night. So, okay.
Sarvanandaji is